Hello, and welcome to another episode of In the Business with Juan and Angelica. I'm Juan Alanis.
My name is Angelica Casares. Welcome.
Welcome back.
Welcome.
How you doing today?
How you doing? I'm doing well, Juan. Thank you.
We're doing all right. We're over here snacking today.
Yeah, today's a good day.
Today's a good day?
Today was a good day. Today was a good
What makes a good day?
I admit that I was in a much better mood than yesterday. That makes a really good day.
So your mood is what makes a good day?
Yeah, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, no, it's kind of, we're in Arkansas recording, and
We're always giving you locations.
I know, but I was saying it because it's actually colder here than it is in Texas.
Mm-hmm. The weather's
And it's
always nicer here.
And it's already snowed twice. We're like,
I know.
This is the week of Thanksgiving.
That's crazy. It's wild.
This is like the week of Thanksgiving, and it's already like before this week, it's already snowed twice. So we're kind of getting an early introduction to the winter season because before it started snowing, we were having a conversation about, and I asked you, I said, when does it start snowing here? And you said January.
Yeah.
And a few days later, it was like, there's snow on the radar. And we're like, what?
But it was not unpredicted. It was an expected snow.
I guess it's like early, no?
It was early snow, yes. But one of the things that I read months ago was that it was going to be a cold winter.
Mm-hmm. Like colder than normal for like the U.S. or just colder than normal for this area?
So the overall season is going to be colder than it was like the last previous year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice though. I mean, I think that's what I was texting with my sister the other day, and I was like, it's nice that the snow falls and then it goes away. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't stay. Like,
it'll stay. But not in January. It'll stick around for a while.
But not the way like in other places where like it's like.
Did you see that? The news reports from like New York and I don't know where. I was like, dang.
Well, one thing that's good is that we did is because Edgar was pressuring us to like, he was like, we got to get an ice scraper. We got to get an ice scraper.
I know, the kid freaked out about it.
And then we were like, yeah, we'll get it eventually. And then he went and bought the scraper for your car. So like if you've never lived where there's a lot of snow, like you actually need that scraper to actually clean your car. Because you like in the morning when you walk out, it's literally like iced out. Like there's it's thick ice on there or snow. Mm-hmm. And in Texas, in Houston, when it does that, normally if it even like ices, normally you can like throw a little bit of water on it and it'll go away. Mm-hmm. Or you can like use your windshield wipers and then eventually it'll just like clean it off.
Yeah, there in Houston, in Texas, it melts easy. It doesn't stick around. Like if it snows, it stay around for like a couple hours. It's not a thing,
Yeah. And the other night, like I was leaving the house and I was going down the road to drop off something, and I went down the road and there was ice already in the car. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and there was already like ice on the windshield, all over the windshield. Yeah. So like this is my first time, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I don't feel like doing the like cleaning the window with the little like scraper. So I was like, I'm just gonna use the windshield wipers. So I tried to do that. And I was driving like maybe a couple blocks from the house, mm-hmm. and then
excuse me,
and then I like all of a sudden I was like, you know what? Let me turn on the water from the wipers to clean.
Nothing came out.
No, it came out, but it made it worse. It like froze my like the windshield entirely. Like there was just nothing but ice. So I was like on the main road
with ice on the window,
and I literally had to like stop the car in the middle of the road because I couldn't see anything.
Why?
Like, I couldn't see nothing. I was just like, so I was just like, I'm gonna drive into the ditch.
There's no ditches here.
Which they don't have any ditches here. But I'm gonna drive into drive into somebody's fence and hit their cows or something.
Hit the cows? What the hell? You got people thinking we're out here in the boonies.
Because it is kind of rural out here.
It was a semi.
Hence my like countrified shirt. But like
okay, countrified.
No, I'm kidding. But no. So I did it, and I had to sit there like for like 5 minutes, like letting the windshield wipers go at it like in high speed until finally I could see something again. But I was like, okay, like we're definitely not in Houston anymore.
You're not in Kansas no more.
No. Have you had any like
Dorothy?
Have you had any like moments like that where you're like, oh, I'm definitely not in Houston right now?
All the time.
Like what?
My God. Okay. So the fact that I can like, well, here's the thing. It's weird because here I can just, if I want something that I don't have to go to multiple stores. Here I can just go to one store and get what I need. Or I can go to just one location and get what I need. So for example, like here they have, it's just an example. Here they have 2 Dillards, right? They have one in Fayetteville and one in Bentonville. If I can't find in Fayetteville, if I can't get in Bentonville and I can't get in Fayetteville, that's it. Those are my options.
Those are your 2 choices.
Those are my 2 choices. So if I can't find it my size in here, I might be able to find my size there, but that's it. That's it. There's no other choice. You know what I'm saying? But typically, like you'll find what you need here.
Yeah.
It's not really hard.
Unless you're looking for like a store, like a specialty store, like
yes, that's not like, a non-existent.
Like they don't like you think the closest like for example the closest Costco is in
Missouri.
Springfield, Missouri. The closest like Brooks Brothers is like in Tulsa,
Arizona. Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is about 2.5 hours away.
And like there's not a Nike store, there's not a Dick's Sporting Goods, there's none of those big like chain stores.
No,
they don't have any.
No, that's again there is like an academy. There is like there's an academy. There is what do you call it? But you have variety in Houston. You definitely have a larger variety in Houston than you would here. It's not like a thing here.
But so you can find pretty much everything. It's just like not in the same quantities.
Yes, definitely. But it's also in quality.
Yeah.
That also can lack here. Like, but the good part is that when you find something good, you actually like encounter it often. Like it doesn't sell out as often. When you're in Houston, like supplies run out fast. Right. Yeah. Like when they put out new like lines, it's quick to go. Or when they put out seasonal items, it's quick to go. Here, like you find it. So I don't know if it's not as hype here, or it is. Like they'll deplete, but they don't completely like sell out.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how like Black Friday and stuff is going to happen here. Cause I think like,
I think after the and we're not like out of the pandemic, but after the pandemic happened, I don't think Black Friday is like a thing now.
Well, I'm sure like in big cities though, it's still gonna be like where people go and they like go and get in sales. You don't think so?
No, I don't think
They don't do it anymore
after Thanksgiving. Yeah, but like it's not like Black Friday where they're gonna open and there'll be like some deals like after Thanksgiving up until like Christmas, but it's not gonna be like they only have like 10 sets of like TVs at like $50. Like that's not a thing anymore.
Well, because I was curious. I was curious because I was like, I wonder if they do that here. Because the thing is, like, I feel like it's such a like small community that I feel like people are very polite because you kind of like
they are very polite here.
You might know somebody that you're like interacting with, so I feel like I was like, I wonder if how they would get if there was like typical Black Friday, like if they would actually like try to fight each other for the stuff or not.
It might have been a thing here. Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're in Houston for sure. People were like all over each other.
I'm like, but no, I guess we won't get to experience that. But for me, like the other day when we were at the holiday lighting that they did in Fayetteville, and we went, and then I wasn't wearing gloves, and I was like, because I was like, I never buy gloves usually because I'm like, it's never gonna get cold enough for me to actually need gloves. And like, and like now that we're here, I'm like, oh crap! Like this is a place where you actually need to have stuff like gloves, and you need to have like hats, like thick socks, and you need to have like long johns, and you need to have like all that stuff. You need to like prepare for the winter. And I was like, oh okay, like this is new. Like okay, I'm not in Houston anymore. I'm like,
all right, Dorothy.
Yeah, like I'm definitely not in Houston anymore. Dorotea. But no, I just wanted to kind of like talk about that. But I think that kind of like leads me into what I wanted to like talk about today.
Today's topic,
which was, I think we talked about it a little bit.
Okay.
And I guess the topic is like, I know that a lot of times as human beings we're curious. Like we're curious and we want to know. Like,
by nature we are.
By nature, and we like want to know. Like if we find out something about somebody that we know, or even if we're not that close to them, like we have a tendency to like want to know. But I guess
Like about them?
Like about like if like say you found out somebody has like they've done something new in their life, or they've made a change in their life, or they're doing something new. And then people have a tendency, or we have a tendency as people, I won't say, I'll include myself because I think I do it too. I think that we have a tendency to like want to know, or our curiosity sometimes, like, you know how they say curiosity killed the cat?
Curiosity definitely gets the best of us as human beings.
And so sometimes
we like to be in the know.
Like you'll bring up topics, or like, you know, the other day we were talking about a situation with a friend, and I was joking around. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna bring it up, and I'm just gonna ask. And you were like, no, you can't ask. You better not ask.
I
Juan.
remember.
And I was like, and I was saying, no, I'm gonna bring it up just because because I'm curious. I want to know what happened. And it's all fun and games when it's not you, but then when people start doing it to you and they're like asking you questions, and you're like,
none of your business. How about that? How about them apples? None of your business.
Like, not that you're like, but you find yourself kind of having to answer situations.
Yeah.
Or for two situations that you're kind of like.
People like skirt around the question. They skirt around like
some people do, but some people are very direct.
Yes. Either one. And I see what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying.
And so I think we were talking about this the other day, kind of listening, and I don't know if you remember, and then you were like, we should talk about this on the podcast. And I was like, you know what? Well, let's talk about it on the podcast. Like, like when people ask you, like, I guess the first thing is like, how do you, if you want to know, like, say if you're just being nosy, and you're being nosy, or you're just curious, and you want to know, how do you ask somebody a question without like coming off as like just being nosy?
Well, that's never going to happen.
Is there a way to do it?
No, that's never going to happen. You're being nosy.
Because I feel like there's...
it depends on how much information they're willing, I guess, to divulge with you.
I feel like there's a way like to poke around. So what's your... Let's just play scenarios. Like what's your style? And then we'll talk about what's my style. Like if you want to know something.
It depends. Well, here's the thing.
And be honest. Like
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the thing. So it depends on like how much information. Do I need to know? Because is it in my industry? Am I...
Well, no. Let's establish that at this point, it's something that you're just curious. You're being nosy. It's not really like...
Can I give you my steps of thought process? Like, listen up. Okay. So it depends on like knowledge, right? Like how much do I really want to know? Is it because I'm being nosy, or is it because I'm kind of like, I'm pulling at threads. You know what I'm saying? So what do I need to know? And if it's like personal and I'm truly, honestly, very curious, it's probably a hot topic for them. So that depends on how close they are to me. How much I'm interested in actually asking them.
Well, say they're close and say they're not close. How would you approach?
Okay, so they were close. I don't know. Sometimes it's hard because when they're close, you don't want to be too nosy. You would prefer that they just kind of like open up and like, this impacted my life, and this was what's going on, and this is how it happened, and this is what it didn't happen.
But sometimes people play coy. And
they do.
They're playing coy, and they know, like, especially if you're close to them, and they know that you know, and that they know, and that's
the thing that you don't know though.
Well, sometimes they pretty much like, especially nowadays, like with social media, like people like might like, so I think sometimes people let's do
this. Let's say this. Because I have a scenario. So, and it's a true scenario. So there's a group of women that I've been hanging out with lately. Okay. And they talk about like their interpersonal relationships with like, their dating and stuff like that. And they talk about some situations, and I get very curious. I'm like, who the fuck are you talking about? Do I know this person? Like, do I know like what the exchange was? And I get really curious. I'm like, did I run into them? Is it them? Is it them? Like, I get really nosy, but I don't want to ask.
Oh, and you don't ask?
I don't ask. I don't want to ask because I do want them to trust me, to know that I'm not going to like open up about whatever it is that they said. Like, I'm not going to go tell people. You know what I'm saying?
But you don't ask them, but do you ask other people?
Not necessarily, no. Sometimes some people will like say things thinking that it's just public knowledge. They'll be like, "Oh, so and so dated so and so," and I'm like, "When did that happen?" They're like, "Oh, that was like a while back," and I'm like, "What the hell? I don't remember seeing people together. Did I miss something?" And so that like people say things without knowing that they're divulging information, and so you yourself can start putting two and two together. You'll start connecting the dots, and you'll be like, "Oh, that's what they're talking about." Like without unwillingly, you know what I'm saying? But even there, I still want people. I still would prefer, like, I don't even say, "Hey, I know." Like like when they start like to say things, because sometimes people will test you to see how much you know.
I feel like that's my style is like I do that, like where I kind of like I kind of test the waters to see like how much like you're willing to talk about something, but I won't ask you directly. I'll just like, you know, if I know, like, say you have a situation, I'll be like, "Hey, so this, like, you bring up a topic that's related to it," or like I'll mention, maybe I might mention the person's name. Yeah, you know, I saw so and so the other day, and
I don't like that. You see, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that approach at all.
And then sometimes
it's so intrusive.
But sometimes it leads to like people like really kind of going down the road and being like, "Oh, well, you know what?"
Because people do that too. People do that to us all the time. I seen so and so at so and so. What the fuck? I'm not her. I'm not. All right, what are you saying? Shit. I'm not people's
people
like.
Tell me that I don't take it like that.
I'm not people's keeper. Like, why are you telling me who you seen, where you seen them? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, in that case, can you just ask me what you're trying to ask me, and I'll tell you if I want to tell you?
No, but I mean, I'm not. I feel like I don't know if it's like the journalist in me that I just kind of like see, like I kind of poke around. And then I kind of see like if you're willing, if you're open to talk about it, because sometimes people are like wanting.
You're not very discreet about it either, Juan, because you're like you'll say something and then you'll make this face. Hold on, watch. Look at my face. If you're watching the video, this is Juan's face. And I'm like, what? You're not discreet.
But that's part of probing, though.
That's not the fucking probe, dude. You're being obvious.
But that's part of probing, like, you know, where you ask a question or you bring up a topic and then you just use silence to your advantage, and you're just kind of like.
No, you don't curl up your lip and start nodding your head. That's not silence. That says way too much.
But sometimes people like but sometimes on a serious note, like sometimes people like are wanting to like open up or wanting to share. And I think when like all it takes is like you like referencing something that's even remotely close to what they're thinking about.
No, man.
And they like spill the beans.
No, look, here's my approach to it. Like, I want to introduce the topic. They themselves probe to see how much you know. And even, well, it depends on what it is. Sometimes they'll be like, "Yeah, so-and-so said that y'all dated. I didn't know." They'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, so this," and they'll start connecting the dots for you. And you're like, "Yeah, okay." But it's not like nothing, it's nothing to where it's like, you know what I mean? Like that has like crossed the line.
Yeah, and I say that like, but I honestly like I try not to be too nosy. But I guess the reason that it made me that this topic came up like is because recently like I have had like a lot of people asking me like very personal questions about
the business.
Yeah, about the business where they're like, "So what happened? So what's going on?"
Have we ever? Do you want to ever introduce that or no?
I don't care, but I just like. But I'm like, I just find it funny because I'm like, oh, like, okay.
And we'll just say it here on the podcast. Maybe at some point the editor can cut this clip and we can post this. So for those who don't know, Big Ultra Media was started about 6 years ago. And then we launched Marketing Consultants, where we hyper-focus on nonprofits. Big Ultra Media is the one that does like the larger projects. It's the one that takes in the larger clients. So Juan has acquired Big Ultra Media on its own. There was a partner. Now there isn't.
Right.
That's truly the story. That's it.
Yeah. And
there's not much to it.
And I think people are just naturally curious because it was a partnership for a long time. And so I'm like, for everywhere I went, I felt like I was getting asked a question. Like, you know, like people were like, "So what happened? So tell me." And I'm like, And I just was like, okay, like, I mean, there's not much to tell, but like,
No, I was still being told like, oh, I seen so and so there, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
what is that supposed to mean? Like, what are you saying? Like, I'm not. I was very curious as to like what they were asking me by telling me, like making statements to me.
yeah, and that's what made me think about like the conversation, because I was like, you know what, it's like it's kind of, sometimes it can be awkward, because it's kind of like, especially if it's like somebody that you like, you know, that you haven't been like that open about like different things, and then like when they ask you like just directly, it's like, oh, like it's not as salacious as you would think, you know. I mean, it just like,
it's not what you think it is.
Like,
it is
just,
what it is.
Yeah, I'm like, it's not really anything juicy. It's not anything like, you know, there's no drama. There's no like, I'm like, it's just, you know, a business separation.
Well, okay. Well, so here's the thing. If there was drama, if there was more to it, here's the thing. That would stay between like here.
Right. I mean,
you know what I'm saying? It's such a personal relationship that there was no like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
Like it's such a personal thing. Like it's like when you like stop being best friends with somebody and y'all just don't want to talk about each other bad. It's just, you know, life kind of happened. Things started to separate, and that's the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the thing, is like you have to just like certain things, like there's no reason to like, you know, there's no reason to like, you know, is that saying that like you don't air your dirty laundry and like this and that. I mean that, yeah, that's like a, like, what do you call it? It's kind of like where like maybe it's old fashioned, or it's like you know, like a taboo thing. But it's not, I don't feel like that's a bad thing. Like I feel like it's just like, you know, it's like you don't gain anything out of like, you know, being like, you don't gain anything out of like over like oversharing, like exposing like something that is like, it doesn't really, you know what I mean? You don't get anything out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no wounds, so it wouldn't be like the wound's too fresh. There's no like, I just think sometimes some partnerships just grow apart. And it's a natural thing that happens, you know. The same thing, like a flower opens, like you expected one color and it was another color, or I don't know, whatever. You give it the theory, you give it your own example, but it just is what it is. Like there is not much to it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's not like you know, I know we brought it up and we talk about it, and I think that's the thing, is like that's kind of where it started for me, was just thinking about that. But it made me think of like, you know, that like, how do you like, you know, I don't mind, like even when it was awkward, I didn't like mind the question. It just kind of made me chuckle more than anything.
Okay, so yes, that's the part. Like, that's the part. Okay,
it just made me chuckle and be like,
so
okay,
we had,
like, that's so weird.
So there
like,
is
to
like,
just ask me like outright, like, so what happened? And I'm like,
no. Sometimes you don't even get asked. You don't even get asked outright what happened. You get told like statements. To bribe, and you're like I said, you'll be told like certain things, like, oh, blah 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 happened, and you're like, what happened? Like, you know something I don't know?
Yeah.
Like, are you informing me of something? Like, what's going on? Like, tell me the juicy stuff. Like, I don't know what's going on. But it's been entertaining more than anything.
Yeah.
To watch people try to ask.
And I guess the other part is like, I do understand like why people are curious, because, you know, I would be curious too, you know.
Yeah, you do end up being very curious to what would happen.
Yeah, like if I find out something like that, then like, I don't know, I feel like it's natural to kind of want to know.
Can I tell you why I think people want to know?
Why?
Because it was a really strong partnership.
It was
a very strong partnership, and I think there was, I mean, two very intellectual people like running behind this. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I think just like your life kind of happens, her life kind of happened, and your life kind of happened.
Yeah.
And by natural selection, things just like, you know, parted ways, because like, not that ideas changed, but there was like things that that you were focused on, maybe you weren't anymore. Maybe things that they were like she was focused on, she was no longer focused on. So it just became like a thing of like, okay, well, this is what I'm working on. This is what I'm working on. And it was just like, okay, I don't think we're doing the same thing anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just like a situation where, you know, at some point you just don't see eye to eye anymore, and I feel like
I don't know if I would even say. I don't know if I would even go as far as to say that. Like, I don't see eye to eye. I think it was just like
no. And when I say that, like I'm saying that, and when I say it, I don't mean like, you know, where that there was like any like ill like feelings, or that there were any like, oh, you know what, like fights and stuff like that, because there really weren't. It was more that, you know, it was just like a different place. I think the pandemic had a lot to do with it. I think the pandemic had a big thing to do, that,
it shifted a lot.
That we were like, where we were almost inseparable before the pandemic. Like after the pandemic or during the pandemic, we weren't anymore. Like it just, so we were both kind of in our own separate spaces, and I think things just kind of started to
define itself.
Right.
Yeah, on its own, it started to define a lot.
And so at that point, you know, when we came back to, and we were like, you know what, like I think it's maybe time that, you know, we don't have this partnership anymore.
Yeah.
Because we're not in the same place that we were.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the business wasn't in the same place that it was before the pandemic. So at that point, it's like, what do? Do you keep pushing something that, you know, is, you know, has been kind of stagnant, and at that point, you know, because things are kind of like, you know, in limbo.
Yeah, because of the relationship itself.
Right.
So everything else remains in limbo.
Right. Do you kind of just, you know, continue to hold on to something that's, you know, at this point you put 6-7 years of your life into it? Or do you each kind of decide like, hey, you know what I want to do is this, and what I want to do is that? And then at that point, just decide like, hey, you know what, let's. I
felt like, if I can put it in theory, I felt like it was throwing up it was like up, it was up suspended in the air. And I think there came a point where either one of you guys had to like grab and pull it down to be like, okay, I'm going to run with it.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that even before we separated, like there were conversations happening about like, where people were also asking questions. Man, at that point, it wasn't to me directly, like, but people were like, maybe a few people did ask me like a couple questions, like, hey, are you guys still partners? And I was like, yeah, I mean, we are.
Yeah, as far as I know,
yes. As far as I know, we are. But I think, you know, she was getting more questions than I was. And I was like, you know, we weren't even like, there wasn't even anything happening for like, you know what I mean? And I think
we're assuming she was getting more questions than you were.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one thing if you see things like, you know, happening where there's like drama, or you're like vague booking each other, or like you're like you know, you're echando habladas or something like that. But in this case, it wasn't. So it was weird that we were already getting questions. And we were. But I think it was just like a natural thing that ended up happening. So when it did happen, I think it increased the curiosity even more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes sense to talk about it, because I think, you know, we've talked about our business, and this is a business. At the end of the day, we're transitioning this into like a business. So we talk about in the business with the chisme at the beginning.
We're all up in your business. No, but I think this is natural. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely do want to start these conversations like this, and being honest about them.
And I think the funny thing is, like, after we started thinking about, like, after I started thinking about, like, you know, maybe it's time for us to like not be partners anymore, I started like researching that idea of, you know, how do you separate from a partner? And the funny thing is that one of the things that the most common thing that I was reading was people advising against getting into partnerships.
Business partnerships?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
From the like, and this is just like random sources, like all these like different like business advice, like when it says starting your business or getting into business and this and that, and a lot of people like were identifying like not getting into a partnership as as a big like tip for starting your own business. And
I think partnerships are okay. I think they're fine, but as long as they So the problem here was that we had no experience.
No, that's the thing. And I think and I don't think they were saying it like, don't ever have a partner. I think that if it makes sense, then yeah, like have a partner. And I think it did make sense when we started to have a partner.
You're right. It did make sense when we first started. The partnership did make sense. Like I said, it was a very strong hold. You guys made a lot of sense to like start it. And I think absolutely. I think that there was a lot of lessons learned. But I thought the partnership was like good. It was solid, you know?
No, I do too. I mean, I think it was a great partnership, while it was a great partnership. And I think, the thing is like, I don't think that the advice that I was reading, it wasn't like, don't ever have a partner. But the reasons that they brought up or that they were advising,
I see what you're saying.
Like not to have a partner was because like they were saying like eventually like, you might have
run
different
issues.
Yeah, eventually you might run into issues, or you might just have different goals, or you might have different, and then it becomes more complicated to kind of separate things.
Yeah.
And I guess it's like in a way, it is like kind of almost like a marriage, where it's like there's so many things that are like intertwined. Then it's like figuring out like, okay, like how do we get like how do we like untangle?
How do we untangle?
How do we untangle from each other?
How do we how do we unknot this partnership?
And it's like little things and it's big things. I mean, it's like big things like who's gonna like retain ownership of a business and who's not.
And how does that look like? And what does that look like?
Yeah, what is that process?
What are the methods or what are the agreements upon that?
And the legalities of that, and how do you do it in a way that's
that's legal, that it would cover both of y'all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And, those things. And then it's small things like, how do you like get rid of a storage unit? And like,
which was one of the things that we had was a storage unit. It's like okay.
How do you manage getting rid of that, because it's shared stuff in there, and I don't have the right to throw away her stuff, and she wouldn't throw away my stuff, so like I have to we have to coordinate and figure out like, okay, when are you available to come and take your stuff out or take whatever you want to take out of there.
Or like there's items that were bought like under the same account, and like who takes what, right? So it was like little things like that, like okay, you can take all the furniture and I'll keep, or I'll keep the files and I'll keep all the other stuff type of thing. So yeah.
So it's a lot of little pieces that are intertwined and
definitely
connected to it. But I think, it is different. And it does feel different, to kind of be on the other side, or, be like where because at one point you do feel kind of like,
I remember you being stressed about like how it was going to play out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like at some point you feel like, how do you like actually do this? And you feel like maybe it's not possible.
I remember you thinking like, I remember you saying like, I don't know, we've never done this. This has never been done by you or me. How does this play out? Will it be like, will it get funky? It hadn't gotten like funky up until that point.
Yeah.
So you were stressed. You're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to uncover something that I that's going to like open a can of worms. I think you want, you know what I'm saying? That you were just like, the partnership just isn't working out the way it was working out at one point. So how does this happen?
Yeah. And I think for me,
I think the stress of it was stressing you more out than what actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think once we had the conversation, like, I think it was a lot easier than I had like anticipated, because I think in my mind, I was like really like stressing out about it. Like really like, I wasn't sure like what was going to happen, how it was going to proceed or not. And so I think I avoided the conversation for a long time. Like I avoided the conversation for a very long time, which like wasn't.
All right, calm down. You make it sound like it was years. No, he's talking about months.
But I like, in hindsight, I'm like, that wasn't a good thing to do.
To wait for so long.
Yeah, that wasn't a good thing to do. And I
feel you stressed yourself out.
Well, not only that, but it was like, imagine had I like initiated that process a lot sooner, like where, it wouldn't have been held up. Like maybe even the business wouldn't have been in limbo so much.
Yeah. Nothing would have been suspended for so long.
Yeah. And I think so. Like, I think that like waiting which I think sometimes we have a tendency to do, is to, when it's a difficult situation or difficult, especially in business, that you feel like, or at least I felt like, I didn't want to move too many things around because I didn't want to, maybe I was going to create a situation that I couldn't handle. Because like you said, this is something that we're doing, this whole thing of like being in business for ourselves and like actually, kind of going on 7 years now, having 2 companies and all of that. Like this is all new territory. Like, so we're like thinking about like, how do you even begin to separate from a partner was like very daunting. It was like, yeah. And so it was just like, you know what? Maybe if I just don't talk about it, it'll go away. There won't be any issues.
That's not the way that works out. That's not the way that works out.
And that's a lesson for me because, I think had I addressed it sooner, then maybe, it would have just, it would have been easier,
It could have, should have, would have.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that because honestly, I think even the waiting, I think you stressing yourself out about what could have happened as opposed to just letting you like simmer with the thought and you like maybe you should have consulted with other business owners that maybe had gone through that process and could have eased your like worry about things.
I was even embarrassed to talk about it, like to actually bring it up to like
people,
like a mentor or to go to somebody like to ask about that, because I was like, I feel like it's a bad reflection on me to like say that I'm separating from a business partner. Like I feel like is that a bad reflection? And so I think like me, I was kind of like thinking like that I shouldn't talk about it.
Honestly, I think it does affect your business in a way.
Yeah.
A separation with the partner does affect your business in a way.
It does.
Because it does give like a power shift dynamic a little bit. There is a possibility that, and this is why it was a great partnership. And I can speak from experience, having been in business with her, that she would say like this one saying, and I hope it's okay to use it, where she would say, "Don't burn any bridges." You know what I'm saying? So I don't think there was like there wasn't any bad talking about us in the aftermath of it. So that's why I think it was a good partnership, because you can just let things be, let that partnership and let that relationship be what it was between, and just kind of people can assume what they want.
Yeah.
Let them assume what they want to assume as to what they think happened. I have a theory where there's 3, when a situation is happening, when it happens, there's 3 ways. There's 3 truths. There's your truth, there's the perception, and there's the truth. The truth, nobody ever knows what it was. Your truth is what you tell yourself, and the perception is what people know, what people think. And that's what you have. That's what you're trying to control, is what the perception is left on other people, what the impression was that you left with other people.
Yeah.
So, and that's the hard part, because when you separate, you're kind of accepting, like, you're accepting that something didn't work out. And so people want to know what was that didn't work out. And it's hard to pinpoint. It's hard to say this is exactly why, because it's hard to explain the way life kind of just like it works out. It just happens. It's some things are just definite. And I think this is one of those things that was just definite. It worked out the way it worked out. And like there's not much to that, because you can't pinpoint just one thing. It's just things that happened maybe here, or just conversations that happened there, or maybe, somebody like, I don't know, woke up one night or decided, you know what, that's not the way I want to work, or I like doing this way, or you know what I'm saying? Like there's multitude of things, and it's not just one thing. And I think people keep wanting to hear that one thing. that people can be like, oh, okay. Like, unless you were involved in the business, then you would understand what we're saying. But a lot, I mean, outside of me, you, and her, and maybe like an employee, like there's no way to explain it. Like you would have to live through it to understand.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense at all?
No, it does. And you know, my like my gut reaction is to be like, well, I don't really care what people perceive, or I don't really care what the perception is. And to a degree, that's true, because I really don't care. But at the same time, I do care.
We're trying to do business.
No, I know.
And so it's not.
But what I'm saying is like, what I say is like, I don't care, like, really what, like, if it's just gossip. Like, that I really don't care about.
Okay.
That I'm like, you know, okay, like, whatever. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. Like, but where I do care is, like, more, like, on if it's, like, a perception of, like, oh, the business was bad, or, oh, the service was not good. Because I think that's one thing that you can't say. You can't take away from the business, and you can't take away from either of us as partners.
Absolutely.
Is that we both are very good at what we do.
Yeah.
And that we're both, you know, in terms
very
of
talented.
In terms of the business that we were doing under the business, like, it was solid.
Yeah.
It is solid.
Yes.
And so I think that's one thing that's where I do care. I'm like, okay, where if the perception is going to be like, start to be like, oh, maybe what they were doing just wasn't working, or what services they were offering weren't good.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not true. Like, now, if you want to, like, you know, people want to, like, estimate and tell you, like, oh, well, Juan probably was an asshole, like, okay, that's fine. You can think about that. Think I'm an asshole, like, that's fine.
No.
Like, it doesn't really matter to me. Because I feel like I'm one of those people that I feel like, if you get to know me, if you work with me, like, then you understand, like, who I am, and, like, then you get to know, like, who I am as a person, and then you see, like, whether I'm an asshole or not, you can figure it out for yourself by getting to know me.
This is okay. So again, I go back to the three truths. It's your truth, the public perception, and the actual truth. And the actual truth, nobody's ever going to be able to tell you, unless you're, like, looking out from the universe in, and you see both of the timelines happen at the same time, and you understand what one was thinking and what the other one was thinking. The true truth never actually comes to light. Then there's the individual truths. There's his truth, and then there's my truth, and there's other individuals' truth. Like, you have your own truth. And then there's perception. It's what people think. And I think the perception is the one that everybody tries to, like, navigate. And this is what we're talking about, the perception of, like, what people are trying to navigate. And I don't know, the perception is, like, we're not the jury isn't out yet on it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like
it's like one of those things, like, where you where, you know, people talk about a current president, and then, like, you don't find out, like, what their legacy actually is until, like,
exactly,
like 10, 15 years later, and then you're like, that person that did this and they did that and and it's like,
you see the, like, the rollouts of it.
Yeah. And I feel like that's what it is in general for, like, everybody. Like, I feel like you might, because we catch, like, snippets of each other's, like, moments of each other's, like, life or business or personal life, whatever it is. But we don't get the full picture. Like, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and we don't know, like, what they're building, what they're not building, what they're, like, contributing to, whatever it is that they're doing. Until, like, you know, years later, and then they're like, oh, you know what, so and so was tied to this nonprofit that they started, and they, you know, they were one of the founders, and they helped now, like, these people, like thousands of people a year are getting served through this nonprofit. And you're like, oh wow, I had no idea, like, that person was involved.
And I'm understanding a lot of this because one of my clients through Market Consultants is a nonprofit, and so I'm trying to get her to understand the perception of the conversations people are having. And you have to understand that when we're always trying to navigate, we're always trying to control the perception, right? One of the things you have to be careful, and this is for everybody who's in the business, everybody who's starting your own business, and you're trying to build a reputation because you're trying to build brand, because you're trying to get trust within whatever community that is, so like that people can do business with you. That includes buying product. Okay. So the thing is that perception. Sometimes people get information in a way everybody is trying to form an opinion about you. So they get whatever information they have to try and form that opinion. if they get information that might be not true, or maybe doesn't put you in the best of light, or maybe it's a very neutral light, but it can sway you either way. You have to ask, what is the perception, and is there truth to it? Is there truth to that perception? And can you change it, like change the narrative, or approach it, or talk about whatever that sounds like, whatever that is to maybe see if there's truth to it. If there is nothing, if there's no truth to it, you have to understand that the perception is still out there, whether it's true or not. So you still have to navigate that. So that's branding for you. So I think, as we were talking about, this was like the perception. I don't think the jury's out. I hope perception still stays the same, that the company is a solid company. We do good work, and that I learned a lot. And from
and that the partners are solid.
Yeah, that she still does work. She does really good work. As a matter of fact, she started her own company, does her own thing, and I think she's amazing. She's an amazing person to work with. Like, if you choose her, if you I think she switched up a little bit. She rebranded a little bit. I think if you get her services, she's gonna give you amazing work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the partners are solid, the business is solid, and I think, and I think going back to you were saying about perception, I think that it is true in terms of, and I always would say a perception is perception is reality, because I feel like for a lot of times,
in a way,
what people see, especially like when it comes to the digital age is like a lot, and I think, and less so now, because I think people are a little bit more. They don't want the perfectness of life. They don't want the perfectness of your like social media accounts. They want to see a little bit more of the rawness and the realness, and they want to like hear about like that, maybe things didn't go perfect for you, so that they can maybe learn or glean something from it. But I think for a large part, like, we kind of take things at face value, whatever we see, whatever you present on social media. We kind of assume like that you're like a person that only has that side of you, and we don't always. I mean, I'm sure that we know it in the back of our minds, but in our in the immediacy of what we're doing or in our interactions, we don't acknowledge that, that's a complete person, and whatever they're presenting on social media, is not a full representation of who they are.
Yeah.
So, it's not like everything, so you can't take it as just like, but I think a lot of times it's easy to just kind of fall into that and be like, oh no, well, they're like, she's like, like used to be crafty thrifter. No, she's crafty thrifter. She does crafts and like this and that. And it's like, well, yeah, that was part of it, but
I still am. I'm a fucking hella as good as thrifter. But I'm still very fucking crafty. Excuse me. Yes, I am. But
they didn't know like the rest of the of
me.
Yeah. Because there was just that one thing.
It was incomplete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we have a tendency to just
judge based on that 10%.
Based on whatever, and then it's easier to do when it's when you're even further disconnected when it's a company, and it's like, oh, that product company is like, oh yeah, they do perfumes. But
but that's what I'm talking about. Perception is that people might think that of for using me as an example, as a brand or whatever, that was the perception. But I understood that if I wanted to rebrand, that I had to do it in a way that came natural to me. I can't. I didn't want to go bounce back and not figure out what it exactly that I was talking about, because I still do, I still show people, I'm still the same person. I still hella buy 30%, 40% of my clothing from the thrift stores. I can out thrift people. Come, you don't believe me? You don't believe me? Come join me. I will out thrift. No, I'm just kidding. Come get some of me.
Made me think of I'm still Jenny from the Block.
Oh my God. But I'm still a hell of a thrifter because I've been doing it genuinely since I was a little girl, and it just comes natural to me. And so when we're talking about like perception, like I don't want to be just known as. I think as I started to build my career, like it was all in fun, and I wanted to build my career a little bit, and so I had to shift a little bit because I was like, I need to make we've had this conversation, like if something happened to Juan, ¿qué va a pasar conmigo? And I was like, okay, Angelica, you better fucking get it together and start making like money on your own. Like you can't tax like Juan's business and be like, Angelica's going to jump in on this, so we're going to tax you 10% more. I was like, okay, I need my own clients. I need to figure out this. I need to make my own money. So that's what happened. That's what happened to like the whole Crafty Thrifter like saga as it rolled out. And you know, I wanted to like start introducing myself out there and like show you like what my branding, what it looks like, what my capabilities were, and the podcast just kind of came naturally. And so this is like where I'm at right now. So I don't know how the hell we start talking about me.
No, it's good though. Like I think before we go though, let's share any of like some news or announcements that we've kind of had recently. And okay. I think I'll start with. So recently we were reached out by Rick Sanchez, who
that was fun.
Who used to be
that was fun.
News anchor on CNN.
Had his own show.
He had his own show, 2-hour show. And funny enough, like I was reached out to Rick Sanchez's team like 10 years ago.
Tell them what happened. You guys tell the whole story. Tell them what happened from the beginning, because it's actually pretty funny.
So 10 years ago, I worked for a nonprofit organization, and
it was a well-known
nonprofit organization.
It's
a legacy nonprofit organization.
It's a legacy nonprofit, yes.
And so there was a situation like
you can tell the situation. You just can't tell who the nonprofit is.
The situation was that
gifts.
This organization did holiday gifts, and this particular year that they were doing the holiday gifts, immigration I think it's still a big topic, continues to be.
But it was then,
it was
huge.
a hot topic back then. I think because it was around election
it first
season.
Started, yeah.
And a reporter called me. And they had a conversation with me, and they asked me if the organization was asking for social security numbers, and I said they are accepting that as one of the forms of ID. But if they don't have, if the parent doesn't have one, they can accept a social security from somebody in the household. It doesn't have to be even a child; it can be anybody in the household.
Yeah.
Or they can provide other forms of identification.
Yeah, so which was like a bill to I don't know, like your rent bill or like a light bill or anything to say that you were. Anything to say that you were in the identifying you for a second to so they knew that you were
system.
to be to not necessarily in the system, just to say that you exist.
Right, into the database of of the so that you could be kind of, so that I guess one of the main goals was to avoid double dipping, that you can go into different locations and register and get the quantities of the gifts be
because
registered multiple times.
Again, it was a legacy nonprofit, so so they had different locations.
So what ended up happening is that reporter ended up misreporting the information, and she made it out that we were discriminating and that we weren't giving.
She was very sensational.
If you weren't documented, that you couldn't get gifts, which was not true. Anyways, I called the reporter, asked her to correct the story, and she didn't. And so next thing you know, I'm getting called from the the French press in France.
National.
I'm getting called from the AP. I'm getting called from CNN, and one of the calls that came in was from Rick Sanchez's team,
but was insisting,
and they were
demanding to talk.
They were like, "We want to speak to spokesman Juan Alanis," and I was like, and I talked to the producers, and I was like, "What is this? What's the angle of the story?" And what's the, because Rick Sanchez was a political show, so and it was on CNN. Show, yeah. It was on CNN for 2 hours, and so you would get, sometimes they would get people on the show, and they would kind of bamboozle you, and I was like, I'm not signing up for that. I'm not going on the show. I'm not going on the show because we already made our statement. We already clarified it. I'm not going on the story. I'm not not going on the show
Basically-
to be embarrassed or to like make the organization look bad. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And so they came back like in the newscast. They were like, spokesman Juan Alanis refused to be interviewed or something like that.
Refused a statement.
Yeah, and
refused a statement. So basically,
like we invited him and he refused to be on the show, and I was like, I'm not going on there.
That was the encounter with Juan and
so
Rick
10
Sanchez.
years ago, like almost, and it's funny because it's almost like exactly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That happened, and I didn't even bring it up to him because I was like, I'm not even going to mention that. But it was, I thought it was funny.
We'll bring it up here.
And I do plan to like reach out to him and like maybe interview him, and at that point I'll share the story with him.
Some other okay. But one of the things that I wanted to say was I remember that time you said you're like, I don't get it. What do you think I should do? And not that you were asking me for like my opinion, not that you were asking me for like advice. You were asking me for my opinion, what I thought, like personally thought. And I was like, that's really silly. I was like, what would you do, Juan? Like, can you tell me what is needed? So like that. And he's like, Angelica, he goes, there's a social security could have easily been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, 9. I don't think that's what they were like that. No, you're not trying to identify whether they were documented or not. Like they could have given me their address, or they could have put it on their piece of paper. They could have literally put like a phone number as a social security number. Like it's irrelevant. And I was like, okay, don't go on the show.
But one of the most fun, like one of the most like ironic things is that because it was a legacy organization, when I immediately was like, you know what, we've got to, like, at this point, this is out of our hands. We've got to just come out and say that we're not asking for that anymore.
Yeah.
They did not want to do that. They fought me like until CNN happened and until we were getting all this bad press. Like we were like I think people actually protested in LA. Yeah. For this situation. Yeah. And then at that point, they're like, oh, okay, let's change the policy. And I was like, this is what I was saying from the beginning. Like let's avoid this firestorm.
Let's not put in the form. That we're like, don't just take out the line that says social security number. Just take that out.
And we ended up doing that. Change and then the story went away. But it was just like, it was, I mean, like,
it could have been easily avoided to be like, can y'all just take that out of that application? Because we really need it.
But as you like, if you know, and I'm sure that those of you that are spokespeople or that are in the communications field, or that even anybody, even if you're not in the communications field, when you work for an organization that isn't like too like up to speed, I would say, on things like this, like it's easy for you to like end up in situations like this because there's sometimes there's a stubbornness there that we're just not going to do it that way. No, we're not going to give in.
We're not going to be pushed around by who? The public? Oh, that's the public you're serving, sir. You're going to have to be pushed around by them a little bit.
But all that to say, like, so Rick Sanchez now has a podcast. It's called the Rick Sanchez Podcast, and his team reached out and they were like, "Hey, we like your podcast and we want to interview you guys." And so we were like, okay. And so I went and I listened to a few episodes and I was like, okay, no, he's doing like something completely different. It's not like...
You were like, you want to do it? I was like, yeah, it's okay.
I was a little nervous.
I was like, what are we going to get bamboozled for?
I was like a little nervous.
What are they going to throw at us?
Is this like a political thing?
What are they going to throw at us?
But no, it was a lot of fun. He was
Can I tell you something? I felt very comfortable because I was like, I think we're a little bit seasoned. I think we know how to dodge a few questions if asked. Yeah.
And it was a friendly interview. I mean, honestly, it was a friendly interview. It was like,
it was very friendly. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying we're experts out here. We're not like reporters who are on the thing who know how to dodge. Like we're not like political, like, you know, pundits. Yes. Like we're not like, no, like don't throw shit at us, but we'll just stop talking. That's all you'll get from us. We'll be like, we take the fifth. That's it. We're done. But I think we're seasoned now to the point where like we understand, we know how to navigate like friendly conversations or conversations that we know where they're coming from,
even if they're not so friendly.
Even if they're not so friendly, I think we know how to navigate the conversations, especially where we're not being pressed or the conversation's not being guided by both individuals, but by one. Like those you can definitely avoid.
And then you
in case you want to solicit us and be like, oh really? Let's put you to the like test. All right. If I can put you to the test, then absolutely, let's go for it. No.
No, but so you have an announcement too. Like I think you have a few things.
I do.
Like,
what's my announcement?
So like,
can you give me a few?
So you like first, I don't think we've shared since we've been on the podcast that you like now you have a proclamation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you just announced it. That's it. There's a proclamation.
But you got to say what it is. I just said a proclamation. I don't think people know what I'm talking about.
So a proclamation is like a day. It's
It's a day. Recognition.
It's a recognition day. I guess it's like filed for the city of Houston. I filed the October, what date? 13th?
I believe so. Yeah.
Right? To be known as Latina Entrepreneurship Day. So every October 14th, that's the recognition day. 13th. That's the recognized date as Latina Entrepreneurship Day, where we recognize and celebrate Latinas in the entrepreneurship space. For those who don't know, Latinas are leading in that entrepreneurship space. They're taking lead. They are making amazing things in that space, and there's a lot to be learned from them. So anyways, there was like no existing day. So I was like, why not? It's during it has to be during Hispanic Heritage Month. So that happened.
It was an evolution of your podcast. So of the Latina leadership series that you're doing on your podcast. It was like an evolution of that. So it was in part to celebrate, right?
It was.
In part to celebrate the women that are entrepreneurs that you already spoken to as part of your podcast. That was part of the designation for Latina entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So in my podcast, I do talk to a lot of Latina entrepreneurs to ask them how it is. The idea is to follow up with them later to see how it's going. Because again, there's a lot to be learned from that. So I wanted to celebrate them as they're leading that space. I wanted to celebrate them. There's a lot of places we're not leading. And I thought that we can't let this year go without celebrating them in that way.
And then there's another date that's coming up.
What's coming up? Well, tell me. You tell me.
You tell me. It's your day. We have an entire a group of people that we're planning and we're working towards this event.
Dinner?
Yeah.
Oh, we're celebrating. We're celebrating the Latina Leadership Series. I've invited a few amazing guests, and I wish I could invite them all. I wish I could fly them all in, and haven't even been like a bigger dinner, gala type of thing. But I'm taking this one step at a time.
Talk about what it is.
Latina leadership.
Yeah,
dinner.
That dinner. What is it for? What day is it falling on? And why that day specifically?
Oh, absolutely. I was like, where are we going with this? So as I said, part of the ladies that I have on my podcast guest were entrepreneurs, and the other portion of them are ladies who are in who are making waves in their industry, or they're making waves in their in their actual place of where they work, wherever that is, whether it's education, whether it's a corporate world, whether it's in the nonprofit or whatever that is. So I interview a lot of those ladies, leading, they're making strides in their careers. So I say that, and it's very unironically that Equal Pay Day, Latina Equal Pay Day, falls all the way until December 8th. And it's during the pandemic, we fell hard. It was the first ones hit were Latinas. So usually we recognize this day in August. I think the furthest back they've recognized it, even last year up until the year before, was October. And this year it's all the way to December 8th, which means it would have taken us all the way to December 8th to have equaled the actual pay that I don't want to say a white man, but that somebody who should have gotten paid in the service that they provided to be paid fairly. So we recognize Latina Equal Pay Day December 8th, which is when the dinner falls on. So I've invited,
means that, and you explained that to me several times, but this means basically that if a white man earned $100,000 last year in 2021, at the end of the year in December 2021, he had already closed
December 31st, 2022. Right. 21.
He had earned 100,000. That it would have taken a Latina to earn that same 100,000 until December 8th of 2022.
This year.
So almost an entire year later.
Absolutely.
So that's why, that's the focus of
the significance of it.
The Latina Equal Pay Day. It's raising
awareness.
Raising awareness. And it's not disequity, but of the inequity,
the disparity, of the Latinas not getting paid the way they not getting, and I think people sometimes misunderstand this a lot, because I'm talking about Latinas, whether whatever their work is. So say there's a nurse who is like maybe a white male who's making 100,000, and then you have a Latina nurse who's making maybe like 40,000, 50, 60,000, and they're doing the same job and they have the same degrees and they have like basically the same level of experience. The white man's just simply getting paid more. And so in recognition for the Latina Equal Pay Day, it's simply stating that there is this imbalance that's happening, that we're not even like on the same playing field. There's no, the disparity is there. And so we have to recognize this. And one of the ways that I choose to do it is to pick that December 8th and invite some of like the corporate leaders that I interviewed on my podcast, and who I know, community leaders that we can start having this conversation and really start introducing that to our places of work, introducing it to our other Latina friends and amigas in the corporate space and the organization space, nonprofit space, and just really start having this conversation. So I'm having this dinner to recognize that day and to also celebrate the Latina Leadership Series.
Mm-hmm. So it'll be a fun night. I mean, it's going to be a fun night, but it'll be more than that. It's going to be, important. And I think we're going to use our PR chops to like then publicize, this dinner and the reason for the dinner. Because I think that's something that's important. And I think that,
Absolutely.
the people that are invited, the women that are invited, I think they're going to help to create more awareness about it. They're going to help to spread the message. And I think that's the important piece, is like spreading the message and saying like, hey, you know what, let's pay attention to this. Like, this is actually happening. This is real. Like, it took almost a year later. Like, that's crazy. That's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot to think that, that the pay is so unfair.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, but no, that's what I wanted you to share in terms of announcements, because I know that's a big one. And maybe after we do it, because that's where we're going back to Houston, and we're actually going to be there. We're going to host a dinner in Houston. So once we have that dinner, we can come back and kind of maybe talk about the takeaways from it.
The takeaways with. No, I would like to talk about it. I would definitely like to talk about what I talked about there and what it was. I would like to like dive into it a little bit more like in depth. I know there is an amazing person that actually can go into depth with me in terms of that topic, who is as passionate about it as I am. And I think, and who's definitely much more, I would say even maybe more educated than I am on the topic. So we'll see. We'll see.
How that works.
Yeah.
But those are the main announcements that are coming to mind. I don't know if anything else is like out there that comes to you. Like, it's been a minute, so there may be other things, but I think those are the main things. So I will share the link. We shared the Rick Sanchez thing out there. It's on our Instagram accounts and our, I think maybe on other social media accounts. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I think that was the most part. That was the most of it for me in terms of announcements.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you know what? We would love feedback.
Yeah.
We would really appreciate feedback.
That's
an important announcement.
Give us ratings and reviews, positive ones.
Hold on.
Positive ones, 5 stars.
Oh, now you're just stealing from somebody else's podcast. Whose podcast is that from, Juan?
I don't know. I listen to a lot of them, so no telling at this point.
There's no telling. That's Pilín Raúl.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Pilín Raúl en la música.
Yeah.
If you don't know that.
Pilín Raúl en la música. It's amazing
Latino
podcast.
music.
Yes.
If you ever wanted to learn about Latino music, you gotta go listen to Pilín Raúl en la música.
Yeah. So we would like for you to get like actual, like, I know you give us feedback. We would like to get like verbal feedback. So like type in there. The last podcast that I think I did was like all over the place. Like, it was me being here. It was nothing to do with like actual work or what the business was exactly about. It was just very like interpersonal, like me. What did you think about it? I mean, I know I was probably talking nonsense because I was just like on like go mode. Like, I was just on automatic. So I probably didn't make any sense. But now that I'm looking back at that, I think I've gotten a little bit braver. And so it made me realize I think I'm capable of maybe just a little bit more. I can push myself even more this year. But so one of the things that I didn't want to talk about was next year, 2023. So before the year's over, I want to talk about like our goals, because I want to hear your goals. Like, enough of this, enough of like, maybe I want to. nah, you got to put something on paper. Like you got to dedicate yours. Like you got to say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to think about it anymore. This is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to hold myself accountable to it. You're going to hold me accountable to it, but you're also going to share what you're going to do. So this is a two-way street. All right. So start thinking about that, because we're going to have that conversation.
And goals, it can be big, they can be small, they can be, whatever it is that you've been putting off.
Now, I want you to reach.
Yeah.
I want you to reach. I want you to really consider it. Because it's enough. Like when I read this stuff, I think I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about our community that we're trying, and I think we try our best. I think we got a little bit more in us.
Yeah, and I think that we have much more in us, and I think the more that we can share and talk to each other and like help each other, I think the more that we can do together and we can help each other achieve. Because I think, and we've experienced it through this. Yeah. It's like that we didn't see people we didn't see people like us like doing like a lot of stuff that we've been doing.
And I keep saying this. You know what worked for me? When I had to go respond to people and answer their questions of, did you do it? That's what helped me. That's like, literally, that was it. I'm like, oh, fuck, I can't keep giving excuses. I better fucking jump to it. Like, I better, when I meet with this person, like, I better say, I did. No, I didn't. Why didn't I? And I don't want to feel like that anymore. I didn't want to feel like, oh man, I'm not even holding myself to this. Like, if I say I'm about it, you better be about it, homegirl. Like, you better get in there. You better do this. At least try. Fuck. So, oh my God. Okay. That's it. You got me out here like on the sidelines, like trying to cheer on a team that I don't even know what I'm cheering for anymore. But we hope you really enjoy this podcast. If you like what you heard, please give us a rating or review. Let us know what you think. If you think we're just too wild out here for you, we might not be the podcast for you. That's okay. We might be for your mom or your crazy ass tias, or maybe your crazy ass aunts, or same thing. That was the same thing. I meant cousins. So give us share it with them and be like, hey, I heard them. I think it reminded me of them. You might actually like them. Here you go. Send them the link.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you want us to talk about, or if you want to have conversations with us, let us know.
Absolutely, invite the conversation, please.
We're definitely open to it, and we definitely, like you said, we're pros, so
we put that out there all the time. Like, if you want to have a conversation with us, I don't think people take us serious. No, we're being serious. If you want to be, you're like, Angelica, I think there's a topic that I want to talk to you about, or even Juan. Give me 5 minutes of your time. Absolutely. We're your friends. Treat us like your friends. All right. I know you got an opinion. Come on, let us know.
All right. Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Did I do too much? I think I did too much. All right, folks. With that,
we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.